Um, you're welcome. So welcome everyone to the Clean Energy Career Awareness Resources RFP webinar. We're hoping to clarify anything that people have questions about, and there'll be 2 question and answer periods during the webinar that'll help you guys ask anything you have to ask. So first, we're going to start with welcoming introductions. Then we're just going to give a little background about the Mass CEC and specifically the clean energy workforce needs. We're then going to segue into just the background of this RFP. We'll do a few questions, then we'll talk about the goals of the RFP. We'll go over all the strands, and then we'll finish out by talking about eligibility, process, selection criteria, and timeline. And we'll have a final question and answer period. So there'll be 2 times to have your questions, and please post them as they come, and we'll sort of answer them in the question and answer time. That being said, I think we're going to just do a brief welcome. So my name is Ben Gross, and I'm from Mass CEC. And I'd love to introduce my coworker, Janelle. Janelle, do you mind going?
Hi, my name is Janelle Granum. I'm the Program Director for Workforce Development Programs here at Mass CEC.
I'm a Senior Program Manager for Educational Partnerships, hence the curriculum work. And we also have one of our interns with us, helping to keep things running along. Abby, do you want to introduce yourself real briefly?
Yes, hi, my name's Abby and I'm the Workforce Development Fellow. I will be monitoring the chat and Q&A for all of your questions.
Okay. All that being said, I want to be respectful of everyone's time and try to get you guys out of here on time, if not early. So as a brief introduction, if everyone wouldn't mind just putting your name and your organization in the chat. Everyone should have the capacity to chat to everybody. And we'll just give that a hot 30 seconds or so, and then we'll sort of move on. All right, maybe we should move on to keep things buzzing along while people are putting their names and organizations.
I'll just do a brief interview on Mass CEC background and what we're about, kind of where some of this work is coming from. So Mass CEC is a quasi-state organization whose goal is to accelerate clean energy technology and the clean energy workforce. We have 4 focus areas: net zero grid, high performance buildings, offshore wind, and clean transportation. These 4 areas have climate critical occupations associated with them, which we are focused on making sure that there are enough people in Massachusetts who can do this work. One of the things that came out this summer, late in the summer, was our needs assessment. That is worth taking a look at if you're interested in what some of the training landscapes looks like across the state, if you are interested in knowing kind of some of the numbers around how many people are needed. This one calls out that we need over 38,000 additional clean energy workers by the year 2030. That most of these workers, what we find, are occupations that do not require a college degree, and that we are interested in seeing kind of where some of the gaps are. So this is a great resource. And then there's a workbook where people can look at, if you're really data driven and you want to dive into some of those numbers, you can take a look at that and look at where those numbers are. That being said, some of the occupations that did come out of this needs assessment as being necessary are things like electricians, which is number 1, and then solar PV installers, which in the state of Massachusetts are also have to be electricians. As you can see, a lot of these jobs are not do not require college degrees. However, of the ones that do, some of them are the kind of things where having experience in the field would be really great for you when you go back. So these are some of the climate energy priority occupations that we look at in the needs assessments. And I will pass it on to Ben.
Yeah, so 10 of these, Janelle, can you go back for one hot second? So of these, like 18, the bolded ones are the ones that don't require sort of typical secondary education. Many of them require training, and some of them have sort of on-the-job internships and certifications, but they don't require typical 4-year degree, allowing sort of people to enter the workforce individuals into the workforce in a way that's quicker and also sort of secures them income quicker. The other thing is that there's a wide spectrum of jobs here, not all trades. It's also a customer service representatives. There's sort of sales representatives. There's broad spectrum of occupations that need sort of meeting, and which will allow a lot of different people to enter this workforce. So now to give a little bit of background about the career awareness resources. So one thing, the whole PowerPoint will be PDFified and posted to the website. So don't worry about writing anything down quickly. And the other thing is that I'm going to be blathering for a little bit of time now. So I apologize to the whole audience that has to listen to me for the next bunch of slides. Why clean energy? What is clean energy, and why is clean energy awareness essential? So clean energy, if you don't know, which I kind of do, is any advanced technology that reduces the use of non-renewable resources. So this includes energy conservation, technologically powered by sun, wind, water, geothermal, hydrogen. So anything that does not use a fossil fuel resource sort of counts as a clean energy technology. And that's why there's so many jobs in this. The career awareness is really essential because there's generally a lack of career awareness about this. And lack of awareness is also a top barrier for entry for many different communities. So there's a cause of economic opportunity disparities because of this lack of awareness. And this really is a crucial first step in sort of increasing our workforce. There's a massive, massive need. And by increasing career awareness early on, we can sort of increase that workforce. It also sort of leans into just nascent desires of, people in the adolescent to young adult age group to sort of improve the world and sort of make things better if possible. And a clean energy career is one of those ways. So the CEC has sort of had pretty broad and really systemic partnerships sort of to improve career awareness. In addition to this, we run an internship program where we've served over 6,000 interns at both the secondary and post-secondary level. And we've placed them into over 600 companies, both small, medium, and large size. And this curriculum specifically, this sort of RFP came out of a collaboration with a bunch of acronyms with the Executive Office of Education, DESE, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed, and then finally the EEA for Energy and Environmental Affairs. The CEC is taking the lead on this to sort of get this curriculum into what will first be innovation pathway schools. The innovation pathway program is a program at comprehensive, currently non-CTE, non-Chapter 74 schools to give students work experience and internships so they can sort of get entry into the job force. And there will now be a clean energy pathway added to the 4 that already exist. And there are a bunch of pilot schools that can be participating in it, and then it will be available to all the many innovation pathway schools that are already on the list in not the 24 to 25 school year, but the 25 to 26 school year. So this curriculum is to provide educators provide teachers and anyone leading an innovation pathway program with content to expose students to clean energy careers. To that end,
can I, sorry, I'm
oh yeah, please do now.
And say there is another opportunity for students that are in technical, who are in the CTE space or the CTI or After Dark program. We now have a work and learning program that does also lead to subsidized wages if you are interested in that work or from any of those locations.
Thank you, Janelle. So who are the key audiences? Well, really, it's students across the state. So these are new entrants to the workforce. And to reiterate, it's a crucial first step to growing this clean energy workforce. And we're talking from Boston all the way out to the Berkshires. So it involves the entire state. So urban, suburban, rural, differences in spending per student. So we're talking a broad thing. And it's first going to be rolled out at comprehensive high schools with Chapter 74 CTE schools, which Jen just talked about as a possibility in the future, but its first plan is for comprehensive high schools. It also could be, depending on the legs of it, to have engagement in post-secondary institutions where there's community colleges or colleges and universities, and then also training centers. And in terms of who's going to be delivering this other than the students that are taking it in. We're talking about educators, so teachers at comprehensive schools and CTE schools, possibly career counselors working in these spaces too, CTI instructors, and then the career centers and CBOs can also sort of partake of it depending on how the bids come back. So it's a really, really, really broad audience, which is why many parts of the RFP and the scopes are written broadly, because it really has to appeal to a lot of students across the state, a lot of adolescents and young adults. So all that being said, I will take a break from talking now to see if there are any questions that have been asked that we could sort of try to answer. Or if anyone wants to post a question or raise their hand and we can unmute you, that both of those options would work. Okay, Danielle, I will, let me find you on the list. Okay, there you go, Danielle.
Hi, sorry, I've never been on a webinar that's allowed me to be unmuted, so this is lovely. Thinking about the content development piece and knowing that this would hopefully be used for future years to come, there's really not like a time parameter on when this curriculum would be like subject to use. Thinking about some of the content we offer at Interplay or like simulations and things like that, there are frequently updates and pieces that need to take place. So our content really isn't downloadable in a sense.
Yeah.
So can you let me know, can you tell me how you envision that working with like future updates and things that would need to be made to curriculum based on best practices, code, things like that?
Yeah, so I mean, that would be, so right now the content is, there are multiple angles of it. I think you're talking specifically about Strand C, and I think in the contracting, we would work out how updates work if it's a platform-based solution that you're proposing. But in terms of like the Strand A content, that would be sort of hard-coded for in-person instruction, which has come up in other questions too. So that is something that we would certainly discuss, during the contracting process between anyone that's selected for it, that's selected to move forward with the bid. And to keep things moving along, does anyone have any other questions that people can post in the chat so things go a little quicker? Gregory, do you mind posting your question? So Gregory, while you answer your question, I'll answer a question. So so the question is, when are you looking to deliver the educational materials to teachers, students, and others? So this would be for the next school year, so for the 24-25 school year, and it would be sort of rolled out in its initial stages to teachers in the sort of late winter to early spring of next year, so in 2025, and that way they can get trained on it and be acquainted with it before, trained on it in spring and in the summer of 2025 for it to be rolled out next school year in September. So September 25 to 26, or September 24 to 25 would be when we're rolling it out. So are there expectations for live training sessions and workshops? Great question. So there will be a live training session for teachers, but I will be the one leading those. But whoever is responding to the Strand will provide the materials for that training, but I'll be the one leading those training sessions in Boston. So that's how it will be. That's how that will be handled. Greg, the budget was decided on by the Mass CEC. I can get you a more thorough, robust answer that is more correct, and communicate that in office hours probably. I believe for the Strand D website would initial rollout of material. So there's a question about Strand D. Would the initial rollout of materials essentially be a new section of the already existing website? So for Strand D, it is the upkeep and maintenance of an already existing website, which we have developed a lot of content into. There certainly is possibility for new sections on that website in sort of to broaden out from just maintenance, upkeep, and minor updates. That these audience suggestions through here. So I'm going to move on to the next sort of section of it, so I make sure I get everything under. But I will definitely take your. We'll come back to the questions I didn't get to from Kristen and Danielle when we get to the next question and answer session. So just as a broad thing, if you don't haven't already, although you probably have because you're at this webinar, there's a bit.ly for the RFP, and there's a QR code. Just as a broad thing, it's $1,040,000. I think everyone already knows the applications are due by October 3rd at 11:59. And really the goal, which is very self-evident in the title, is just to increase clean energy awareness at the sort of secondary and post-secondary level, but primarily the primary audience is at the secondary level. So in terms of goals, again, I don't like reiterating myself, but the idea is that because there's this limited knowledge base about clean energy careers, this will allow students to get exposure to the broad spectrum of them. I think it's very easy to think of like solar or wind or like electric cars, but there are many, many, many other avenues to clean energy careers that students can participate in. So the idea of the curriculum is to highlight a variety of those careers, from the broad pathway down to the sort of particular the particular career itself. So, and then the idea is that doing projects, assessments, affinity-based focus areas through the different strands, it'll increase their interaction and exposure with those sectors. So they will have a little more stickiness to it and a little more grit. We want this to be a multimodal, so different modalities of delivery, diverse in terms of its activities, and also differentiated. So this is to be delivered in heterogeneous groups using sort of differentiated instruction for the educators, because they will be heterogeneously grouped students. It needs to be on demand for different instructional contexts, which basically means that like there have to be the materials for it to be delivered in an advisory setting or in a classroom setting or in like a small group setting. And the idea of the interactive materials for Strand C really just is supposed to increase buy-in and retention by giving the students sort of something more to interact with. So all of this is sort of outlined on page 2, needs to work in a variety of settings, and the ask of the instructor should be as light as possible. So the materials should be really comprehensive. It should be the sort of thing where like, if we're talking about Strand A, they can sort of come in and 5 minutes beforehand and sort of look at the lesson plans and start delivering the lesson. That is like a non-ideal situation, but is a situation that certainly will occur plenty. Janelle, do you mind going to the next slide? So we'll go through all 4 strands. Now, to answer the first question, because we've gotten this multiple times, I've gotten multiple questions about this. You can apply to 1, 2, 3, or 4 strands, any combination. So you could do A and C, A and D, A, B, C, D, just B. It's your choice which ones you apply for, and they will be judged independently. So if you were to apply for all 4 strands and one part of the application got approved, but another part didn't, that's how it would work. So if your strand B, if you applied for ABCD and your strand B was the one that we selected for the bidder, and strand A was not, then you would get the bid for strand B and not strand A. So I just wanted to clarify that. But there are these 4 strands. The first strand is the curriculum. The second are the videos to supplement the curriculum. The third is the broad interactive learning resources. And then the fourth is this website that'll sort of fold into it. So to talk about the curriculum and to really elaborate on the content some, we have asked for 2 different curricular doses, one at 12 lessons, one at 24 lessons, is because we want the capacity to have more, basically. We're talking about generally 1-hour lessons with some extension activities that are allow for longer or shorter lessons. So if they're in a 60-minute session, they'd be able to deliver then, but some schools are in block settings, some schools have shorter advisory settings, and this would allow for adaptability. We're looking for curriculum maps that are matched to state and federal standards, that certainly matched to state standards, potentially federal standards. And we want this to be project-based, but not only project-based, because not every educator likes a project-based implementation. So there's also have to be sort of partly project-based and partly inquiry-based to meet the different needs of different educators that will be implementing it, and then also different learners. We want the sort of current strong teaching practices, partly that includes differentiated instruction and heterogeneous groupings. The facilitator materials, we're looking for Facilitator manuals, basically like sub-plans or plans. Any of the supplies that they need would need to be noted. Any supplemental activities they need would need to be included. And then finally, a slide deck for them to use. All this stuff would be included. And then the idea of the Strand A is that other Strand's material, so the website, the videos, Strand C things would be integrated into that curriculum. So there'd be a cross-strand conversation. So everything is sort of seamlessly flowing together. Strand B for the videos, we're really looking for slice of life videos, as they're called, sort of 3 to 5 minute, generally videos. Might be a little shorter, some might be a little shorter, some might be a little longer. So again, we're looking for 2 different dosages for the 2 different essentially dosages of implementation. The locations will be arranged by us because we have those contacts. And the talent, sort of people speaking, will range from like clean energy workers to people working at CBOs. We really want a broad spectrum of and diversity of talent. So we would like some youth voice in there so that the students can sort of see themselves literally in the videos. The script development based on the interviews will provide oversight for that technical space of it. And then to increase the stickiness we would love also, we would expect social media excerpts and then some on-site photography for use in the curriculum to span everything together. And because this came up in multiple questions, the graphics would be simple. So just very simple graphics, no animation, nothing complicated that will increase the cost massively. For Strand C, this is the broadest of the strands. The idea is that this would include everything from a sort of web-based solution that could be accessed remotely, like at home as a homework or a home assignment, to like hands-on classroom materials to help them deepen their understanding of clean energy and sort of the work of clean energy careers. This also, by having it a remote solution, it would allow students to learn at their own pace and sort of dive in on their own. There could be a potential for certifications, but that is not the focus of this. The focus of this is on career awareness and really career exposure. And these would be modular, so they can plug in different places for an extension of the sort of fundamental lesson. So if the lesson is on, how solar panels work, and there was a supplemental material on like basically building a solar panel, like a little solar panel, and checking on how it works, that would be a really good coordination between the 2 strands, and would deepen the learning in a way that's really, really strong. And then finally, for Strand D, this would be the maintenance and upkeep and sort of slight improvement of the website, which is already in existence. So this would allow for the website to deepen. There already are really strong career paths on there, and this would allow for the website to sort of strengthen, and also theoretically looking at the UX of the website to sort of have it drawn a little bit more. The website currently has a lot of training opportunities, but we'd like to emphasize the prior occupations and then also possibly pull some of the videos in there to make the website a little more dynamic in that way, and make the traffic, increase the traffic. I have done all of my my talking for now, so I'm gonna turn over to Janelle so you can hear someone else talk.
My apologies. So eligibility, who is eligible for this to apply? So we are looking for a wide range of people who have expertise in this area. We are asking that, we are saying that there can be multiple partnerships, but we do ask that there is only one lead applicant. You can be for-profit, you can be a nonprofit, you can be established higher education institutions. We do ask that you are based in Massachusetts or you have a way to work remotely for Massachusetts, a Massachusetts company, that you have done this before, whatever the strand is you're applying to, that you have some expertise in that, especially since one of our requirements will be some of, you telling us about your expertise, right? We ask that you understand some of the relevant clean energy workforce development. And I think a little bit of, because this is a statewide curriculum, thinking about maybe some regional things that are going to be important to think about what clean energy looks like in certain places. And that you have the capacity, right? we are saying that this is going to roll out hopefully in schools by next year, but that does mean that teacher training and training on this stuff has to happen earlier. So there is a question of whether or not, if you have the capacity to take on this body of work as well. We ask that people assess that for themselves. Our application process requires us to, of course, have acceptance form, just something that you sign that says that, yes, this is my work and this is what I'm signing up to do. There is an application form. There is a sample contract. So if there is language that you need to look over, you can do so. And there are instructions in each of these packets. We are not looking at additional attachments. We are looking at, it's nice that you have 200 pages of recommendations from the Department of Energy. We are not looking at that bulk of material. We are mostly concentrating on the application with, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, some letters of support. So how are we going to look at and rate these? We are looking at alignment and qualifications. We're looking at the work plan that is submitted. We're looking at the examples. We are looking that the budget makes sense based on the amount of money that is being requested. And then we are also looking for those references. Where we are in terms of the process, most everyone here should have already reviewed the RFP. You are at this webinar. If there are additional questions about your particular RFP, you are making a plan to come to office hours. If you have not already looked at the website that details some of these things, office hours will be given at the end when we look at a little bit of timeline. We are looking for people to submit all and completed applications, again, by October 3rd at 11:59, and 11:59 Eastern Standard Time. I think is also worth mentioning, because I do think there are some national organizations here, and I want to make sure that everyone is clear that we are in the east of the United States, and so when we say 11:59, we do mean Eastern Standard Time.
So I'll take over and just sort of finish things up. Just finally review dates. I will be posting all the questions that have been sent to me by last Friday this afternoon, so everyone can have access to everyone else's questions. This Thursday, there will be 2 office hours sessions. If you go to the website on the QR code or the bit.ly link, they have the hyperlinks to these two opportunities. As Janelle just said, the proposals are due at October 3rd, and then we are on a truncated timeline, and that is on our end, and we are aware of this, and we are understandable. We are appreciating people that are meeting this truncated timeline. But in order to meet our timeline and get notification awards out by the mid to late October, basically this next month, we are going to conduct interviews relatively quickly just to get all the information that we have on October 5th. So I think what will happen is that on October 4th, we will reach out to any organizations that we want to conduct interviews with. There will probably be half-hour or so interviews, anywhere from like 20 to 30 minutes, just to sort of supplement our understanding of your application. And then we will be sort of making decisions and then getting awards out and notifications out by the end of the month, and really towards the end of the month. So they will be out by the end of the month. All that being said, I know a lot of information was just thrown at you. There are a bunch of questions that came in that I'll sort of seek to answer one by one. But if you have other questions, please feel free to sort of put them in the questions, because that is where we're monitoring them. So there's a question about whether have teachers been involved in the effort so far, and how receptive are they getting new information to their already tight teaching schedules? So teachers have not been involved so far because it's still in the planning process, but we certainly will see teacher input to try to sort of get as much teacher voice in there. I taught for 15 years, so I am aware of tight teaching schedules. Where this will appear in curriculum will be in these innovation pathway lessons, where teachers are already sort of aware of the time commitment that it takes, and they will see this as a resource and as a benefit to sort of have something for their students to work with to increase their career awareness. With multiple awards. So because there'll be multiple awardees working on the different strands. A totally valid question of how they're going to complement each other before being finalized. It'll be a sort of iterative work in progress, but the strands will have scopes of work and have ideas about the work that they'll be doing. And if anything, this will allow for more adaptability because, strand A won't be totally done. And then for strand B to sort of make the videos for, it'll allow for there to be communication between the different strands. I will be the one coordinating that and making sure that, everyone is sort of talking to each other. I'll be the sort of point that everyone talks through. In terms of is there any idea of how many awardees will be selected per strand? There is not, because the strands are so diverse. I think for strands A, B, and D, it probably will be one awardee, although it could be more than one depending. And then for strand C, because it sort of can take so many different flavors and appear so many different, because the materials can appear so differently and can be so different. We do not know how many awardees will be selected. How do we arrive at the number of videos? That's really to complement the number of the sort of modules. So we would rather have more videos than less videos for modules because the videos hopefully will be gripping and they're a really strong resource to lean on. So the 15 videos would be for the 12 module dosage, and the 30 would be for the 24 module dosage. They do not need to, and there's a question of, are they intended to showcase all the priority occupations identified during the assessment? During the needs assessment, they are not intended to showcase all of the priority occupations. And in fact, if you did 30 videos, there would be, if you did 15, there'd be too few, and if you did 30, there would be too many. So that will not be that list will be leaned on for the videos, but it'll partly be based on, who wants, it will probably be based on the locations and the talent that is selected. So there's a question about, is it okay for an application for strand A company address only a couple of the focus areas versus all four, or are all four required? The four being net zero grid, offshore wind, high performance buildings, and clean transportation. Given the broadness of the application, we want all four addressed. So students are aware of all the different really aware of all the different occupations, and really use those priority focus areas to sort of see the different ways this thing can manifest itself. So there's a question about intellectual property that is a question that we will talk to our legal department about, and we worked out in contracting, and would be sort of part of contract negotiations. We would need access to the lessons for like strand A, to all the materials. We'd need to hard coded anything that is sort of worked on for us specifically. We would need access to, so we can maintain the intellectual property. But that is not a specific answer. A more specific answer will be worked out.
I'm going to also say this work would be for us. This would be using taxpayer dollars, so it would also be relatively free to the public. So I think if it helps influence your decision as well. I don't think we can say, because of public records, that this would be owned by you. Once it's developed for us, I think it becomes the state of Massachusetts for that particular lesson.
But the IP question, partly determinative of, we basically would need perpetual access to it. We would not be using it to make a profit, but we need to be able to we would need to be able to have access to it so we can spread it out amongst the public. So where online can, so there currently are, so where online can we access the innovation pathway lessons? I can include in some of the slides sort of the innovation pathway website, which is easily accessible, and I can sort of include that in the question and answers to help people out. There currently are no online innovation pathway lessons. That's not how the program manifests itself, and we're really seeking to bolster that programming and to support it by having some lessons. But there currently are no online lessons. So I think I will give people time to sort of ask a few more questions, but I believe I have gotten to all of them at this point. There was a question, oh, I answered when you're looking. So we already have the when answered. So I believe I've answered all the questions. I will give people a few more minutes to, or just a few more seconds to port their questions over from the chat into the lessons. Is there, so there's another, so a few more questions. Is there interest in making the educational content publicly available, such as through Creative Commons for other states to use? Right now, this is for Massachusetts. That is to be determined later on, whether it's sort of for public use by the whole country. That is a answer that I don't have that is a question I don't have the answer to right now. That is sort of a longer longitudinal thing, because we're still at the early stages of this. But certainly, you know, we do want saturation in Massachusetts, and that'll be a starting point. So if anyone has any other questions, Gregory asked, Greg asked a couple of questions about the training. Training for teachers will most likely be delivered in person, but there's room to. So there are two different answers to this. The curriculum, Strand A, will be implemented in person and is a career awareness curriculum. It is not a HVAC technician training curriculum. It is knowledge about HVAC work in the clean energy space, and that will be delivered in person. There might be room for some virtual or sort of recorded content to be used in that delivery, but that would sort of be worked out in the making of the curriculum. The training for the teachers, which is separate, that will be done in person. And as I answered earlier, that those materials, the training materials about the curriculum, will be developed by the winner of the bid of Strand A, and then will be implemented by me. I will be providing those trainings, but that'll be a sort of working out back and forth with myself and the people who win the bid for Strand A and write it about like how that training is going to look. So there's also, can we provide an example of a set of learning outcomes for a career in this module? For a HVAC technician, that would be deliverable by a bidder? I mean, answering that question would sort of make the bidding process unfair, and would sort of cross the line in terms of like me sort of saying what the curriculum should be. So I think that in terms of learning outcomes, I've tried to outline that we're looking for increased career awareness. We're looking for scope of work. We're not looking for a curriculum map, but we're looking for like a scope of work. We're not asking for a curriculum map or for the learning outcomes right now. So if I did not clarify that the learning outcomes, if not fully clarify or sufficiently clarify the learning outcomes, please come to office hours where I can try to sort of more thoroughly clarify them. That being said, I think at this point, I've answered all of the questions that have been asked. Thank you, everyone, for coming to just finally review. If you have any further questions, please email workforce@masscec.com, which everyone sort of has access to. I will be posting the Q&A answers later today, so everyone will see what everyone else has asked. And there will be office hours on Thursday for me to try to answer in a little more depth, a little more specific questions. Other than that, thank everyone for your time. I appreciate you coming here, and I really look forward to reading everyone's proposals. Please have a good rest of your day. Bye, everybody.